Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen.
Hello and welcome to Gegenpressing, the German football podcast from the Football Grad Network. I'm your host, Bryce Dunn. Joining me, as always, Manu Veth. Manu, you're still in Germany. How are you?
I'm actually again in Germany, Bryce, because I was in France for a couple of days. Did the other thing that I sometimes do, academic stuff. Spoke at the Nanterre Université. I hope I didn't offend any French person with my pronunciation there. On Russia, football, Gazprom, and soft power, and gave a lecture on that down in Paris, or up in Paris actually. So yeah, I've been back in Germany now and full with French cheese and wine. Full of academic knowledge. So yeah, pretty good. How about you, Bryce? How's London? You guys have this beautiful weather as well?
Yes, the sun has finally arrived, just like the flick of a switch. We went from dark, dreary, miserable winter weather to sunshine. We had likes of 26, 27, 28 this week. It's unbelievable. Don't know where it's come from, but we'll not complain.
I'm back in Europe, that's why.
Oh, you brought it with you, eh?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's very kind. And I'm sure our other member, Chris Williams, will also be appreciating that. Chris, how have you been?
Yeah, not bad, Bryce, thanks. Looking forward to Tuesday. Obviously, Champions League is back. I'm at Anfield for Football Grad. Football Stat, covering the Liverpool-Roma first leg. And then I'll be looking forward to Bayern's game Real Madrid. So, yeah, we've got an interesting week of football coming up.
Do we still want a Bayern-Liverpool final? Is that what we want?
Yes, we do. That is exactly what we want for lots of things.
Yes.
Mainly for work reasons, Bryce, because there hopefully will be TV companies all over the world after us. So, yeah, of course we want Bayern against Liverpool in the final. Or Bayern in the final against anyone, as well as Liverpool from a personal perspective.
That'd be a cracker.
Indeed.
Bring it on.
I think that's it. I think it would be a cracker. And I think between the three of us, we might even be able to organize maybe meeting up again, just like last year. That would be good fun, wouldn't it? Reporting from the game.
Yeah.
I want to see this game, so I might not go out the night before.
Yeah, we'll curb that. We'll go out after the game, I think.
Yeah,
we will have to because there's no more hotels in Kiev.
No, well, yes, exactly. God knows where we'd end up. But let's not get ahead.
I know all the parks and parks benches. Don't worry, Bryce. I lived in Kiev. I know the city like the back of my hand.
That's fine. Then we're sorted. It's okay then. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's take it one step at a time. Let's see if both these teams can actually get to the final. But talking about Bayern, let's start off with them. And last week, we talked about them in plenty, didn't we? We talked about Niko Kovac coming in and what type of impact that would be. But we see that Bayern this weekend play Hanover. And just while you thought, well, they've got other games to be focusing on, They absolutely breezed that one 3-0. They didn't really get out of third gear, as Manu would say. But let's maybe talk a little bit about that game, but also about the midweek Pokal game as well, which sees them reaching the final after a fantastic and emphatic 6-2 drubbing of Bayer Leverkusen. Manu, let's go to you. You obviously predicted that Bayern would be able to achieve a treble this season. And, with that victory midweek, it seems like they're still on course.
Yeah, they're definitely on course. And wow, Bryce, this team right now, I mean, this Leverkusen Bayern game, I had the pleasure to do the match report for Fußballstadt.com. It was a breathless game at times, and I actually thought that the result is, of course, Leverkusen got blown out of the water in that game, but only because they actually tried to play some good football. And I think towards the till about the 55th or 60th minute, Leverkusen were very much in this match. And then miss a chance, Volland misses a chance, got denied by Sven Ulreich, who was fantastic once again. And then Bayern score their third, and then I think Herrlich threw everything into this match, and as a result got absolutely destroyed. His side got absolutely destroyed, and I think till that third goal, though, it was a very even match. They could have gone still either way, but if you give Bayern a little bit of an opening, they just take it. And they are just so dangerous going forward. Right now, Thomas Müller, Lewandowski is on form, and, when Lewandowski isn't on form, they bring on Sandro Wagner, or the other way around. This was the case against Hannover. Poor Hannover, Bayern just kind of summer kick, like playing on the beach, more or less. And, weren't that effective, got a goal, but weren't that effective, and then Heinkes brings on Lewandowski off the bench, and Bayern still managed to destroy Hannover in what was really an easy game for them. It's so remarkable how good they are right now, and when they really want to, what they can do. And I haven't seen something like that really since 2013, when they were also, of course, coached by Heinkes. You didn't see the same kind of attitude under Pep Guardiola, but under Pep Guardiola, when they won the title, they sort of took the foot off the pedal a little bit, and then got, of course, eliminated in the Champions League. And this year, they not seem to do it. It's really, really impressive the way they have been playing in recent weeks. And those two matches showed that even if they're not, if they're not playing full throttle, they still have that professionalism about them to just win a match. And that's just remarkable, I find.
Yeah, absolutely. They seem to just be very efficient, don't they? They seem to be very professional in still keeping these performances up, which would have been easy for them to slide with them relaxing in the league. But Chris, if we go to you, it obviously in the other semi-final we've seen Eintracht Frankfurt beat Schalke, so it will be the Niko Kovac derby in a way, or final, I suppose, as he will be playing the side that he will then be taking on, or he will be taking over next season. But it would be hard to say anything but Bayern are going to be favourites going into this. Do Eintracht stand a chance, or Bayern just too good?
Well, if Manuel had the pleasure of reporting on the Bayern match, I had the displeasure of reporting on the Schalke Frankfurt match, which was probably one of the most bad-tempered games I've watched in a long time, with Frankfurt just edging through, and I mean just edging through. And they've got themselves into a final's a one-off game. I don't think you can take form into it, although, Bayern are heavily the favourites, and they've been playing some exceptional football. I, like Manu, I'm a little surprised at how concentrated they are still on the league and the cup. I thought it would have been all about the Champions League, because that's one thing Bayern haven't won in a while, is the Champions League. But they seem to be, not resting players, going with strong sides, playing the strongest 11 that are available to them at every single time. And I think Heinkes is very focused on the treble, and maybe even thinks if he takes his foot off the gas a little bit, then it's hard to get it back on. But it's a one-off game. It's a one-off final game. The master versus the student, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be a thrilling game, and I'm pretty sure that Kovac will want to win it for Frankfurt. Obviously, he was there last year. I was there last year, and they watched them be edged out by Borussia Dortmund, and they played very, very well in that final in periods. And I'm sure they'll want to go back to Berlin and right the wrongs of last season. And I think that Kovac will be happy to do that. I don't think for a minute that he'll be sat there thinking, I can't beat these because, I'm going to be managing this side next year. I want to be able to go into the trophy room and look at the Pokal, not have to get on a bus to Frankfurt. I don't think that'll be in his mind at all. He'll want to go out on a high, and the best way is to beat Bayern and give them the Pokal. So a one-off game, they've got every chance, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bayern blew them away.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty tough challenge, isn't it? But as you said, Chris, you never know what can happen in a one-off game. But let's talk about Bayern's midweek game coming up, which is not a one-off game. We're going to be playing over a home and away tie. It's going to be a Wednesday night when they're at home taking on the Champions League favourites, Real Madrid. Manu, last year we seen that, there were some questionable decisions, which resulted in Bayern going out. Over 180 minutes, it ended 3-3. What way do you see it going this year? Do you see Real having the edge? They've got maybe the experience of beating them before, or do you see Bayern being a better side than they are last year, or maybe Real are worse?
Oh, Bryce, are Real the favorites? I think Bayern are the favorites in this match, according to the stats guys at 538. I mean, take it or leave it, right? I think Bayern are considered the favorites by them. Others would say, of course, Real are the favorites. I think it's really hard to say who of the two are the better side right now. I think when you go by league form, you would probably have to go with Bayern. If you go by Champions League form, you have to go with Real Madrid. And on the other hand, they didn't really convince me that much in that second leg against Juventus. Keep in mind, it was only a penalty at the very last minute, and Real Madrid get those more often than others. Although I think, and Chris, you pointed this out very well on Twitter, you uploaded some images after the penalty call. When you take the emotions away and everything, it was the right call for Madrid to get that penalty. But at the same time, it's always curious that Real are the team to get those. And I think when you take those two legs, the second leg wasn't that convincing. And that's been something that struck me about Real Madrid. When they're good when they need to, but they also always have those games where they just look vulnerable. And I think that is something that I find very curious about the side. Now, of course, they can prove me wrong on Wednesday when they play against Bayern and they blow them out of the water in the first leg, like they have done in the past. I mean, you have to remember last season when those two teams clashed. Real Madrid ended up winning the game in Munich and then lost the game in Madrid, and it ended up being 3-3, and it was only that red card to Arturo Vidal that was that difference maker. But, I mean, Chris, on that level, can we really say one is the favorite over the other?
No, I mean, obviously there's got to be favourites because people want to bet money on them. And if you look at the latest odds, then Real Madrid are 7-4, Bayern are 2-1. So it's not, they're pretty evenly cut. Liverpool are 9-4 and Roma are 8-1. So the only people who have been given an outside chance at the minute is Roma. And I think they're one of the most dangerous sides left in it. So this particular matchup, I don't think you can call it. It's going to all be, it's an old football cliche, but it's going to be who plays the best on the night, or in this case, nights. Neither side can afford to have a bad night, especially Real because of where it is. So, we're just going to have to wait and see. If Bayern can get, 3 or 4 goals, then it's going to be hard for Real. But if they get, I'd say even one away goal, even if it's 3 or 4-1, I think there's always a chance there. Or Madrid could just go out and make it 4-0 on the night and it's all over the next day. But we saw what happened at Juventus if that happens. So I think maybe both sides are capable as a wobble on the night with the pressure. We're just going to have to wait and see. Let's get some football cliches out of the way. First goal is going to be crucial. And away goals are crucial. It's going to be a fascinating game, and I don't think it's one where you can say one's a favourite, one's not a favourite. Very much, this is a two-legged final for me, and whoever goes through from this will fancy their chances the most.
Yeah, I would go along with that. I think that the team that wins this one will be the favourite to win the final. This is, this is just because of the dominance that those teams have displayed, not just in their domestic competitions, but in the Champions League. You have to remember, no team has reached the semi-final or quarter-final stage of this competition more often than Bayern. Real Madrid have now won it 2 times in a row, 3 times in the last 4 years. That's football royalty, and they're facing each other. And I think on that night, so much will depend on little details. For example, Cristiano Ronaldo, there was a very good article today in the Süddeutsche Zeitung here in Munich about how Ronaldo has reinvented his game and how he's now a center forward rather than a winger, and how he will be crucial for Bayern to take out of the match. And you saw what he did in the first leg against Juventus, where Juventus really struggled to take him out of the match, right? And lost that match mostly because Ronaldo found the net. Including that amazing bicycle kick. I think he was in the air 2 meters and 30 centimeters in the air where he hit the ball. That's remarkable. And in the second leg, Juventus took him out of the match. And I think that's the things that will make the difference. If Bayern can take out Ronaldo, I think they have a very good chance of going through. So I think that is really where Jupp Heynckes will focus on. And I think if there is a man in world football, of all the coaches there are around the world that can get his team ready to do this. I mean, Chris, this is a 70-year-old coach who has seen and done it all. Then it's probably Jupp Heynckes.
Yeah, he will have studied the way Real have played in the last few matches, both in Europe and domestically, and him and his team will have put something together, hopefully, from a German's perspective, that they can stop that and go through to the final. But obviously this guy is going out, isn't he? This could potentially be his very last match. Obviously he'll have the Pokal final and then the Champions League final if they get there. So it could be his very last match, and who will it be against? I've already said, and I've put it on Twitter, that football has some very strange stories. It's already thrown one up in Germany. So the Pokal final will be, Niko Kovac playing the team he's about to go to, and Jupp Heynckes playing or putting his wits against the coach who he's just about to hand over the reins to. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Jupp Heynckes face Jurgen Klopp again in the Champions League final in his very last game. I think football has got a very strange way of throwing these scenarios together. So it's going to be very, very interesting. But I would say, remarkable as a player and as a manager that Zidane has been winning the Champions League back-to-back. It's never been done before. He's the first player. He's the first manager to do it. He's won it himself. He's a World Cup winner, albeit he got sent off. But he knows the game, but does he know as much as Jupp Heynckes? Has he got as much experience off the field as him? It's going to be a real tactical battle, I think, and one that Bayern will feel that they can probably edge out over 2 games. One game, I think, may be an ask because of how strong Madrid are and how powerful they are, but a 2-legged tie, if they can get a good result at home, you never know.
Well, that's it. And it also seems that Thomas Müller is very confident going into the game as well, saying the chances look good. We're not just in the semi-final just like that. We're in a good phase. And I'm sure we won't be gifted anything, but there's something in the air right now. So there's clearly confidence in the side going into the game. But we talked about Cristiano Ronaldo and different tactics that are going to need to be employed. But Manu, who are the other players that possibly Bayern need to nullify going into the game? They're not just a one-man side.
Yeah, Toni Kroos, of course, and Modric, right, in midfield. And then the attacking players will be very much occupied by Casemiro, who was, of course, the player that should have been sent off last season. We have to remember how Real got through last year. It's still one of the most questionable games, I think, that I watched since I've watched football, and I've watched a lot of football, but it's been still one of the most questionable games. And Casemiro is going to be a key player, and if they have to find a way around him. It's funny that you mentioned Thomas Müller, Bryce, because the guy has been spectacular since Heynckes has come in, and really good in this Rückrunde. The goal that he scored against Leverkusen, just amazing. And the way he's been acting, I mean, he said after the game they showed him the goal on camera, and he said, yeah, well, now that I'm seeing it on TV, it looks pretty good. That's the kind of attitude he's showing right now. And I think he will be key for Bayern, and he will be key to terrorize players like Casemiro, right? To give them no edge. And he's the kind of guy that can do that. I mean, we remember in the World Cup in 2014, when Germany was playing Portugal in the opening match and Thomas Müller got Pepe sent off. And I mean, that's not unfairly, but he managed to do it just because he was constantly annoying him. And from then on, it was a clear path. So Thomas Müller will be, of course, a key player in terms of nullifying someone like Casemiro, because Müller is the king of trash talk. I think we all know that.
Yeah, most certainly. And Chris, just to speak about certain players on the field, how much will Bayern miss Arturo Vidal?
Oh, well, I think he's key to the way this team plays. We've spoke at great length on probably the last 5 or 6 pods about how his form just rocketed once Jupp Heynckes came in. So I think he's going to be a very big miss. I mean, some of the games that I've covered for Bayern, he's always been the standout man of the match. So I think that should give you an indication about the strengths that they will miss. But he's not there, so they're going to have to deal with that, and they won't be able to use that as an excuse at some point. We didn't have Arturo Vidal. They'll just have to get around that and use the strength that they've got. I mean, they have still got some exceptional midfielders, so maybe not with the same experience, but Vidal can be in and around the squad to offer his opinions about and maybe coach and mentor some of the guys who are going to come in, or especially some of the youngsters. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom. Bayern are nowhere a one-man team or a one-man midfield team. So maybe if he was the best player on the pitch and they didn't have anybody else that could equal it around him, I think it would be a massive loss for them. So, for instance, if Real Madrid were to lose Cristiano Ronaldo, I think that's almost unrecoverable for them in a game of this magnitude. But I think Bayern will be okay without Vidal. They should have enough strength and depth to deal with it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. When Heinkes won the Champions League last at Bayern, he had two pivots in midfield with Schweinsteiger and Javi Martinez, right? And they were both capable. Of course, Schweinsteiger a bit more attacking minded than Martinez, but Schweinsteiger in the later parts of his career was playing a lot deeper in midfield. And right now they kind of seem to lack that. And when you look at the alternatives to Vidal, we're talking James, Thiago, Rudi, right, Chris? They're all a bit more offensive minded. So I think that will be maybe one of the weaknesses now in that Bayern midfield, because everyone else in that Bayern midfield is attacking minded, and they will have to find a balance. It can't be just Javi Martinez holding down the fort for them, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting just to see how they set up going into the game this week. We'll have it all covered on the Football Grads network, and well, plenty of talk on both the games, I'm sure. But guys, let's get back to the domestic side of things. Let's talk about the Bundesliga. Borussia Dortmund had a fantastic weekend. Things look a little bit better for their Champions League hopes as they took on Bayern Leverkusen and beat them a whopping 4-0. Yes, what a comprehensive victory that is. It even seen Jadon Sancho, the youngster, the Englishman, score and become the youngest Englishman ever to score in the Bundesliga. Manu, this is a massive step, isn't it, for Borussia Dortmund to get into the Champions League? We talked last week about who would possibly get those positions, and it's looking most likely that Borussia Dortmund will get it now, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a very big step for them. But can we just mention on how quick things can change in 90 minutes? Chris, you did
massively.
You did the Riviera Derby match report, and it seemed so doom and gloom, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. This was a million miles away from that. They were horrendous at Schalke. And they came out to a banner that says, or was the effect of, I don't think you understand the gravitas of the result against Schalke. Big banner on the West Stand, basically saying the players weren't up for it, and they pretty much answered that. But yeah, this is why we love football, because you can go out and get humiliated one week, 2-0 by your nearest rivals and your neighbours, and then you can go out and spank your other neighbours. Leverkusen's only down the road, and you can batter them 4-0 and effectively draw a line, under your own Champions League problems.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I covered this match for Fußballstadt, and Dortmund should have been up 3 or 4-0 in the first half. You have to remember with the result. So they won this game 4-0, right? But Royce got a goal called back in the first half thanks to VAR, and it was the correct call. But I mean, when I saw that goal go in and he was racing off, celebrating it, right? And you had sort of this feeling, oh wow, like this is lifted off. You could feel the roof was coming out of at the Westfalenstadion. And then the goal called back. And then shortly after he missed the penalty, probably because he was still angry about having the goal called back. So that would have already been 3 goals in the first half for Dortmund. But they didn't. In recent times, you have seen them fall apart after performances like that. How many games have you seen on the Stöger where in the first 45 minutes they were incredible, and in the second 45 minutes were like, oh, I want those 45 minutes back. This was horrendous. But they actually topped the second 45 minutes by keep playing straight footballs. Jadon Sancho was incredible. Royce was fantastic. Mario Götze single-handedly resurrected his career in 90 minutes of football. Philip was great. Chris, you called it. we were wondering about who can play up front. You said play Philipp up front. Stöger listened to this podcast, obviously, and did it. But that formation worked because they had those 4 guys up front. And I felt like that was my old Borussia Dortmund. Because all of a sudden you had these 4 guys rotating because Philipp wasn't stationary in that striking position, right? He fell back. He changed positions, interchanged positions. Götze played there. Then Sancho moved over. Leverkusen didn't know where players would be popping up. And I need to mention Pulisic as well. He was on the field as well, of course, and he played very well too. So I thought actually almost that system with that kind of forward suited them better than playing with a more natural striker. In this game anyway. So, of course, in different games you will need different players, but in this game it was exactly what they needed. So, it's interesting because that's exactly what you said, Chris. Like, play Philipp up front, and Stöger did, and it's exactly what they needed.
I've been a big fan of his for a long time, and I've said it before that when he went out injured, I thought he was the best forward that Dortmund had at the time, and he's come back after a terrible injury, and he just looks hungry every time he's on the field. But I think you're right; it's the 3 behind him that suited it. In the past, we've seen Borussia Dortmund be better with a 3 up front, but for this particular game, it worked well. And as you quite mentioned, that Götze played well, Julian Weigl played well, the back 4 were well. Obviously, Akanji started on the left. I think that he made a massive difference, especially if you look at the 3rd goal, which I think is probably the best goal that Dortmund have scored this calendar year. It was just such a fast break, excellent control, and a very, very good finish. So, it's all round a very good day in the office to combat what was a horrendous weekend before. And I think we said, didn't we, prior to this pod, that with the games that were going on this particular match day, out of Dortmund and Bayern and Leipzig and Hoffenheim, there would be massive winners and losers. And I think we've seen that this weekend with, I know we'll get on to Leipzig at some point, but I think they're the biggest losers and Dortmund are the biggest winners.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned Manuel Akanji. When I wrote the match report, I ultimately gave the man of the match to Jadon Sancho. I thought, I haven't seen a performance like that. Someone on Twitter ended up comparing him to Wayne Rooney. I'm not sure where that comparison comes from. I find they're 2 completely different players. But I thought young Mario Götze, and I think Stefan Buschko posted a picture on Twitter where you could see the way when Manuel Akanji placed that ball forward. I think it was the 3rd goal that you just mentioned, right, Chris? And he takes the ball with the back heel and then moves forward and then plays the cross that ends up being the goal. So I wanna point out Akanji on all of this because Akanji is a centre back. And when Dortmund signed him, there was of course also talk that Liverpool wanted him because he is such a fantastic player. In the ways he distributes the ball out of the back. He's a very good centre back. But what a lot of people keep forgetting, when he was playing in Switzerland, he was the fastest player in that league. He was capped at the sort of speed that we see from Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. So Stöger, in his infinite wisdom, and I mean this in a positive way, not in a negative way, put him on left back, a position that he's never played before. He's played in the right back in the past, so he put him on left back. Because Schmelzer has been horrendous all season long, and the guy plays the best game of his season. And Stöger afterwards said, well, it will be difficult for Schmelzer to get back into the side, right? Because Manuel Akanji looks like the player that you need on that position. He's fast, he distributes the ball well, he can cross, and he has that first opening ball. And I think, for me, it was very close. I mean, Jadon Sancho, we usually tend to vote for players that do the more fantastic stuff, right? But when you look at Manuel Akanji's play, and the fact that they took out Schmelzer, and I think another reason was leaving out Nuri Sahin, sort of the old guard that sort of needs to maybe go away anyways at the end of the season. Key move, in my opinion, to put Manuel Akanji on that position, a position he's never played before. Gutsy move by Stöger, and it paid off big time, and it was probably the most interesting move he made, and it turned the Dortmund side completely around. This was the most Dortmund-like performance I've seen all season by them, and I think it was little tweaks, and this is another thing that you said, Chris, maybe it's just little tweaks, and that's what Stöger did, and he went all in and he won.
And I mean, Chris, we've spoke about the run in the final few games for Dortmund, and they were quite challenging. They had a lot of tough ones, and this is a fantastic result for them. When they've got Bremen coming up, who have had a good second half of the season, but Mainz, who have possibly, at that stage still going to have plenty to play for down that end of the table, and then finishing off with Hoffenheim. But I mean, to talk about Leverkusen, do you think that they were maybe a little fatigued, maybe a bit downtrodden from the midweek Pokal game?
I mean, they could have been. It's rare for sides to play midweek and then weekend, especially this time of the season. And Leverkusen obviously weren't in the Champions League or Europa League last season, so at the critical end. So they will have not been used to this sort of tempo. So I mean, you could say that, or as Dortmund showed last weekend, teams can have a very bad off day and be punished for it. And I thought Leverkusen have been over the whole of the season have been particularly good, but on the weekend they were very poor. It'll be interesting to see how they respond to this drubbing in their next match, and they've still got a fight to try and get into a Champions League slot. I'm sure they're not just going to give it up now. So it'll be interesting to see their response. But I wouldn't say their bubbles burst as such. I'll just say maybe they just had a horrendous day, a little like Dortmund had last weekend.
Well, that's it. It'll be interesting to see how they recover when they take on Stuttgart next week, which will be no easy game for them. But, guys, I suppose let's talk about, the second placed side, Schalke, who did have that fantastic result in the derby last week against Dortmund. But this week they struggled. They looked absolutely breathtaking out in the first half, conceded a goal against the run of play against, Gunners Cologne now, I would say. But the game ended 2-2 after a free kick in the second half. Manu, this means that Dortmund are catching Schalke. They're only 2 points behind them now on 56 and 54. Do you think Dortmund will leapfrog them into second? Or do you think it doesn't really matter because both the sides are going to get Champions League, and whether it's second or third, who really cares?
Chris, what do you think? Does it matter?
I think it does locally, yeah, of course it does, because Dortmund will want to finish second. Yeah. Schalke will desperately want to topple them to say that they're now the king of the teams in the Ruhr region. So, yeah, I think pretty much it matters as much as a cup final to both sides.
I agree. I think it massively matters for Dortmund and Schalke. It's kind of, put it in perspective, it's kind of the same as Tottenham and Arsenal, right? What was that day that they always had in England when Arsenal topped Tottenham? There's a name for it.
St. Tottering Day? Is that what it is, Chris?
Well, it's a bit too southern for me, that. I'd akin it to, obviously I'm from Liverpool, so if Liverpool weren't to win the league, which they haven't done for a long time, it's about, are they going to finish above Everton? That's Everton's main goal at the moment, is to finish above Liverpool, because they know they're not going to win the league, and they're pretty not good enough to win a cup because they haven't won one for 20 odd years. So their main goal is to finish above their city rivals. Now I know Dortmund are in Dortmund and Schalke are in Gelsenkirchen, but they're very, very close. They're neighbouring cities. So it's going to be local bragging rights. That's what it's about for the whole team, for the whole club, for the supporters, for the members, for the staff. Schalke would love to be able to say at the end of the season, we finished second with a second best side in the country and with the number one side in the Ruhr region, which obviously is full of clubs, as we well know. So, for me, that battle for second place is obviously it's not as valuable as a trophy, but in the mind, locally, it'll be as valuable as one. Neither will want to finish behind the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Manu, who do you think's most likely to do that? Obviously, Schalke have the 2 point advantage, but the run-in isn't exactly easy either. We talked about Dortmund having Hoffenheim, Bremen, and Mainz, which is a tough enough run-in. But Schalke have Gladbach, Augsburg, and Frankfurt. I mean, that's not exactly easy either.
No, and Gladbach are back in the race for Europe because of Frankfurt. And we'll talk about Frankfurt in a moment. But Gladbach are back in the race for Europe, so Gladbach will want to have preserve that minimum chance that they have to maybe reach Europe after all, right? So that's a hard game. Augsburg, they reached safety today with their win over Mainz. So that's maybe a little bit easier, because of course they might be in celebration mode. 8 years in a row now that Augsburg were tipped number one team to go down, and 8 years in a row they stayed in. So congrats to them, by the way. Frankfurt, same story as Gladbach. They will be still fighting to maybe reach that straight Europa League spot, right? They cannot rely on winning the cup. The 7th place, if Bayern win the cup, will be still enough, of course, but they will be also still fighting. So that's a tough rest program for them. And of course, Dortmund, they got Bremen next, right, Bryce? And then Mainz. That's
right, yeah.
I would say that's slightly easier. Mainz have been dreadful. Bremen won't care. It's nothing for them to play for. And then, of course, the final matches is against Hoffenheim. And my gut's saying by the time Hoffenheim and Dortmund are playing, Hoffenheim will be playing for a Champions League spot, for the 4th spot. Again, we'll get to that. But Dortmund's Champions League spot will be wrapped up, which can be easier for you, right? The pressure's off, so they will be just fighting for that 2nd place. And I personally think that Dortmund will finish 2nd. I still think so. I am not convinced by the Schalke side. I have not been convinced by the Schalke side all season long, and I watched the game today. I think that they're a very good side. I think Tedesco is doing a fantastic job, but I just don't see it. I just don't see the hype quite yet. I think that they will be better next year, maybe, if they make some additions, but I don't just see it yet, Bryce.
Wow, well, I'm surprised on 2 different fronts. One, you said something positive about Augsburg. That's never happened.
Yeah.
This is going down as a special moment in the podcast, I think. So until maybe this next.
We'll tell the editor to take it out.
Oh, how did I know that was coming? But you also said that you haven't been impressed with Schalke. I mean, they brought in a new coach this year. How it is left. You guys didn't think the coach was going to last. How it is was obviously a big part of the side there. He went to Italy.
Bryce, I think
they finished 10th last year. I mean, surely that's a good feat.
I think you slightly misunderstand me. I think they haven't blown me out of the water. It's always been consistent, but there was never that many spectacular results in their performances. And the big thing that surprises me about Schalke is that they haven't been found out yet. I suspected they would be found out last week when they played Dortmund. They weren't, because Dortmund were dreadful. I think that side is on a good way and a good path, and they will reach the Champions League, but I do not think that they're a better team than Dortmund. I'm sorry, I just don't. When I look at the squad and I look at the squad depth of each side, I just don't think that they're the 2nd best team in Germany. That's just my personal opinion, and I think that Dortmund has a very good chance of still catching them and making up for the Revier Derby defeat, because if you finish 2nd in the league, that will count something in that regard. I mean, of course I might be wrong, but that's just when I look at the side and when I look at the games, and every game that I've seen them play, I do not see them on a higher level than Dortmund, even when Dortmund were bad.
It wouldn't be the holiday season if there wasn't candy, right? Celebrate the holiday season with the Holiday Crush. They've sprinkled candy with a holiday theme and fun-packed challenges every week for 5 whole weeks, finishing on January 4th. The more challenges you complete, the better your chances of unwrapping delicious rewards. So, are you ready to crush the holidays? Play the Holiday Crush now. Download it from the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Do you think it's just that Dortmund have been more inconsistent and had their patches? I'll remember the end of Boss.
Dortmund blew it.
Tenure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think Dortmund blew this season. When you look at the way they played against Leverkusen, it's absolutely remarkable that they are where they are right now. They should have long wrapped up the Champions League spot, and they should be chasing Bayern at the top of the table.
Yeah, well, that's it. One stage this season it looked so good for them, and then it fell so very flat, didn't it? But let's talk about these sides just further down from that. Chris obviously mentioned RB Leipzig. I feel we're going to have to touch on them, but let's start with Hoffenheim. And I believe that this patch, Manu's made a point this week of us going back to bringing out some German sayings, which we all know I'm very good at them, but I've got off the leash for too long, haven't I? So the rest of the pack, Manu, is known as Die Verfolger. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was close. It's good.
Okay, well, too bad. Okay, well, maybe one of the easier ones. But yes, let's talk about Hoffenheim first before we get to RB Leipzig. Chris, we'll go back to you. But we see that they're only 2 points behind the Champions League spots in Bayern Leverkusen. Obviously, that loss to Dortmund is going to play into their hands. They managed to beat RB Leipzig 5-2. It's very rare that you see these type of scorelines. But I suppose credit to Hoffenheim, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Obviously, if you were just to look at over the match and say, oh yeah, Leipzig had a red card and did that do it? Pretty much in essence, it sort of sealed the fate. But they already had the lead by then. It was looking unlikely that Leipzig could come back into it by the time Forsberg was sent off, and then that probably just helped the game go to the score it did. But I thought Leipzig just looked tired, really tired. And some of the people they left on the bench, I'm still a little surprised at. I mean, if you look at who started, obviously Naby Keita was on the bench. I know he picked up a knock to the hip in Marseille, but I would have thought he could have started this game. Obviously, he came on later in the game. Campbell didn't start. Upamecano didn't start. Agustin didn't start. It was a strange selection for me. I know why he's gone with Werner, but I think I said last week on the Mexican pod that I jumped on to tell them all about how dangerous Germany are going to be at the World Cup. Timo Werner looks tired, so I'm surprised that he went with Werner starting. So yeah, it's been a strange one, to say the least. And I think Leipzig, they've started to fizzle out a little bit now. And we said it last season, how would they cope with Europe? I think now we can look back over this whole season and say they didn't actually cope with it very well. And if they need to do anything for next season, it's work out how to play Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. Now, next season, they're going to have it even worse, because I will suspect now at this very point that they'll qualify for the Europa League. So they will either play Thursday and Sunday, or Thursday and Monday if we get Monday games next season. So I very rarely think we will see Leipzig play on a Saturday. It'll mostly be Sunday afternoon games or Monday games if they go ahead. So they're going to have to adjust to that. And how well will they adjust to it? Well, going by how well they adapted this season, not very well.
It's interesting that they suspended all contract negotiations, eh? That was the news today. No more contract negotiations until the summer, including, the one that, of course, got the most attention was Timo Werner's negotiations, for all the obvious reasons, but also including, of course, Hasenhüttl. And it's interesting that Hasenhüttl went from being a coach that could take the Bayern job to a coach who might be out of a job this summer because Leipzig might think that in order to develop this team further, they might go a different direction. It's fascinating how quick football can be that way, in that regard, because in some ways maybe they feel that he did not manage the side correctly in the second half of the season.
And that will be a problem for him if he's trying to, if he and Leipzig call it a day and they separate, because I know that it was a little fractious earlier on in the season. If that relationship's broken down and they leave, well, he's not done himself that many favours by showing his inability to coach what is a decent side and a decent squad, especially in the Europa League. I think that's the problem here. Champions League, okay, it's Europe's premier club competition. They're a very young, embryotic club. They're only formed a few years back in the grand scheme of football. And it'll take them a while to get to the level to be able to play in the Champions League. But I thought Europa League, I genuinely thought this is a competition that they probably could have got to the final in with those that were left over two legs. They should have really done the business against Marseille, especially taking the lead in the manner they did over in France inside the first 2 minutes, I think it was. That should have been enough for them to steamroller that game. They didn't. They collapsed, and we've seen it all too often this season. Is they collapsed, and they collapsed again at the weekend, and were hammered at home 5-2.
Yeah, and that was the you mentioned collapsed against Marseille, collapsed against Leverkusen. Those were key games for them in terms of going to the later stages of the Europa League, which now in retrospect might have been the easiest path to Europe for them, or the Champions League, right? And then of course the collapse against Leverkusen. I think the static isn't there, and I mean Hasenhüttl is maybe to blame, but I think one of the big culprits is also squad depth. That's something that we've also chatted about, right, Chris? That the lack of squad depth in the side has been a big problem for them.
And the problem they've got now is arguably they're going to lose their best player at the end of the season. Obviously, Timo Werner is out and out striker, but if you're looking at who's going to supply him, who's going to get the ball to him, who's going to be the creative linchpin in that midfield, they're going to lose Naby Keita in the summer. And there's a reason why clubs were trying to fight for him, because he's pretty much an out and out player on his own, and there is no other alternative to him. So it's going to be fascinating to see how they replace him, because some of the guys they brought in I don't think are going to step right into that slot straight away at the same level. So this will be a really big problem for Leipzig last season. They struggled with Keita in the side. Then I dread to think how they're going to cope next season.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And also, let's not forget that Red Bull Salzburg have gone further in the competition than them. So, that's a little embarrassing, I think.
Yeah, maybe, eh? It's interesting that you mentioned that the whole Keita and the fact that they're going to have a hard time replacing him, because they may have to change the way they're playing. And then, of course, that's again brings in the whole question mark about Hasenhüttl. Can he play a different way, right? Will a change of playing style coincide with a change of coaching? It's a good question. I mean,
it might have to, because we know that obviously their first season in the Bundesliga, they were powered by Naby Keita. That's why they got where they did. He was the main cog in that engine room, if you like it, of midfield. And that's why he was voted the second best player in the league over that season. And it's going to be hard, because I think he's the key to that whole Leipzig style. So take him out of it, and there's a Naby Keita size hole in the midfield for Leipzig to fill quickly.
Yeah.
Well, do you guys also think that, Chris, you spoke about Timo Werner, and, we've always sang his praises on the podcast, and, we see him leading the line for Germany in the summer. I mean, if he has a good World Cup, RB Leipzig don't reach the Champions League, could they possibly see him wanting to move on as well? And if so, the change of a coach, Naby Keita and Timo Werner, that's going to set the club back, is it not?
Well, I think Leipzig have already said that nobody's going anywhere. So, and they are quite good at that. They said that, Naby Keita wouldn't be going anywhere. And although he signed the deal, they're true to the word. He didn't leave in that season. Werner's under contract. I think they'll be quite hard over on that. They don't want to be seen as a club that buckles when the likes of, I know Liverpool have come, but when either Premier League sides come, or if someone like Bayern starts sniffing around Werner, they don't want to be seen as a club that buckles under the pressure. So they've already said he's not going anywhere. So they pay his wages, he's under contract, so we'll have to wait and see. But I'm sure if they want to tie Timo Werner down, they'll have to do it before the World Cup, because if they don't, and he has a fantastic World Cup, then they could be getting offers from Spain, England, and other parts of Germany, which will be eye-watering to them. And, at the end of the day, RB Leipzig is a business. So no matter how much Ralf Rangnick says, we're not selling players, if someone like Real Madrid or Bayern Munich come in with stupid money, it's the people who pay Rangnick's wages will start to go, actually, we might not be able to turn this down, considering we've lost our best midfielder and we've got a virtually brand new coach in. Maybe we need to do a little mini rebuild of this side, and that'll pay for it. So it'll be very interesting. Yeah,
Manuel, if we talk about the likes of Hoffenheim and Leipzig, do you see either of those sides leaping over Bayer Leverkusen's position and getting into a Champions League spot?
Well, Hoffenheim are now in a very good position. I think they've kind of flown a little bit under the radar in recent weeks and slowly but surely have creeped up to a position now where they're only 2 points behind Leverkusen and have the better goal differential, with plus 16 as opposed to Leverkusen's plus 14. Of course, the defeat against Dortmund didn't help. And Julian Nagelsmann has a little bit reinvented himself in recent weeks. He's rotated his side less. He has banked more on key players in his side. I think it's helped him that he didn't have the European football to worry about anymore. So, he has really developed a little bit. And this is something that we've wondered about, in his development, right? What is he going to do with this, what was given to him in the first half of the season where he was very heavily criticized? And I think he's done a remarkable job, and he may very well guide Hoffenheim back to 4th place in the league, and this time go straight to the group stage of the Champions League. And I think they can possibly do it. Although, that final game against Dortmund, I think that will be the key match for them, and it really will depend on where Dortmund are at that time of the plays. If Dortmund are already qualified for the Champions League, then maybe. But I think the top 4 as it is going to be the top 4 we're going to send to the Champions League at the end of the season.
Well, yeah, you never know. There could be a few twists and turns in there yet.
Absolutely.
Murray. You never know.
No, absolutely.
You never know.
Absolutely. And that's why we love this league.
Absolutely.
And then they pick up, if Hoffenheim pick up 6 points against Hanover and Stuttgart, I think they're pretty much there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And Stuttgart are all but safe, so they're probably not going to have a lot to play for, if being honest. Hanover, well, I don't think they should have much problem down that end of the table, which we'll talk about in a minute. So you never know, right? But let's talk about Eintracht as well. We've seen them take their eyes off the ball, it seems, a little bit since the announcement of Kovac leaving in the summer for Bayern. Chris, they just haven't been as solid as what they have. They've now lost 2 games on the bounce, and European spots seem less likely, even though there's still plenty to play for in the final 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should talk about the fact that Hertha Berlin have won a match 3-0. That's probably more of a surprise than Frankfurt getting beat, because Hertha have been pretty poor throughout the whole season. But yes,
and last season,
yeah, and season 4. So it's a shock. I didn't expect them to get beat, but once again, obviously, you don't know how much the midweek took out of them, because they played a very, very strong, dogged game. It was a scrap. It was a scrap from start to finish. At one point, I dreaded we were going to go into extra time and penalties, because it was that much of a scrap. And maybe here we've seen them just, come to a natural end of stamina for that week. But as the way the table's poised, it's going to be hard for them. I think the top 4 is way beyond them. But, if Hoffenheim can carry on and Leverkusen have a bit of a slip, and Leipzig aren't playing the best at the moment, they're only 1 slot behind Leipzig. I would say they've probably got more of a chance of overtaking Leipzig into 6th than they probably have of beating Bayern in the Pokal final. So if they're looking at European football next season, they probably want to look at getting 1 over Leipzig and finishing in that 6th place, because it's going to... Oh, no, because if Bayern win, then it'll drop down to 7th. I mean, they probably want to finish 6th. I would say let's have a look at them on the next match day, because I think this particular match day, Bryce, it's given them it's given a lot for them in the game they played against Schalke. So I'd say maybe not judge their last few weeks on this particular game. Maybe judge it on midweek, on the way they got to the final through fighting and some fantastic defending at the end.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So, I mean, I suppose this leaves us with little time to talk about the relegation playoff and or playoff position that seems to be coming, because Cologne are all but done after their result today, their inability to turn that game into a win. Hamburg, as we've already announced, that clock has more or less stopped ticking, even though they did get a win.
Oh, don't say that, Bryce. Don't say that.
I don't believe it. I can't see it. 5 points off? No.
Yeah, but
can it? Can it happen?
Yeah, it's Hamburg.
No.
They're the escape
Really?
artists of German football.
To be fair, Freiburg are on a horrid run of results.
Okay,
at the
so
moment.
next week they're playing Wolfsburg. That gap could be down to 2 points,
Maybe.
right? Right. And then the week after, HSV have Frankfurt. Okay, that's going to be tough. And then the final match against Gladbach. But if they win that match next week, that will be the final for Hamburg. If they can,
And do you see them winning that game, though?
yeah.
You do?
Oh yeah. Wolfsburg are dreadful. They're absolutely horrible, and Hamburg are now absolutely going to believe that they can still sort of pull this off. I do think that Hamburg are going to win that match.
Well, guys, let's say then, who do we... I know you guys don't like when I bring predictions to it, but who do you both predict are going to finish the bottom three? Let's all agree Cologne, unfortunately, are gone.
We don't need to agree on that, Bryce. They were all on the field crying at the end
Yeah,
of the game.
they're done.
Yeah.
That's a done.
Over, game over. It's 8 points.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's done. It's done. So let's talk about the other two positions. We've obviously got Wolfsburg are sitting with 30 points. Mainz are sitting with 30 points. Freiburg, as I said, awful run of games, 30 points. Then you've got Hamburg sitting back on 25. Manu did mention that Wolfsburg will play Hamburg this coming week, which could, if the result went the right way for Hamburg, could result in them having 28 and only being 2 behind. What do we see happening here, guys? Is the clock to be uncovered and, it's going to keep ticking? Nobody's jumping on this.
Yeah, it's silence. I think it's still possible. If they win that game against Wolfsburg, then it's only 2 points, and 2 points is nothing. We'll get a final. I'll tell you what, on match day 34, there will be a final. In German football, they like to do a little mini conference between the teams that all can still get relegated. They will have to do a mini conference about the relegation battle. And it will involve Hamburg, it will involve Wolfsburg, it will include Mainz, and it will include Freiburg, because you have to remember Mainz are playing Dortmund on match day 33, right? So, they will drop points in that game, 100% certain. So, yes, there will be a final mini conference, relegation conference on Sky, on the radio, and then later, Saturday night, when they're doing the highlights, they will do a conference there once again, because we won't know until match day 34.
I mean, if we look at another game as well, we've got Freiburg, who I said are performed. They're playing Cologne this coming week as well, Chris.
I think Cologne will win that, because there's pretty much no way back now for them. So this game this weekend, they had to win that. They didn't. They've drawn it. So that hoodoo is off their back. They're down. We just need confirmation of it. So I think they could win that, which will then drag Freiburg into it. Wolfsburg, Hamburg, well, that's obviously going to be a hard one. I can even see Mainz scragging out a win against Leipzig at home. I watched them the other week at home and thought they were all right. So we'll see how the home matches. Leipzig are in a terrible run of form. And then your man is quite right. Match day 33, I think Mainz will then, if they manage to pick up a result, plus 3 points on match day 32, I think that will even its way out. I think they'll get battered by Dortmund. And then Freiburg are playing Gladbach. Well, you never know who you're going to get with them. They're either going to go out and win 3-0 or they're going to get beat 3-0. So, it's a hard one. And then Frankfurt, obviously they're playing Hamburg. So it's a difficult one. I think Manu's right. I think it could come down to match day 34, when hopefully Manu and I will be watching Leipzig against Hertha in the Olympic Stadium. But let's have a look at that particular game, Freiburg-Augsburg. I mean, that wouldn't be a particularly thrilling match normally. It might have a little edge to it. Hamburg-Gladbach, Mainz-Werder. It's going to be. And then obviously Wolfsburg against Cologne. I think Cologne would love nothing more than to win their last couple of games and drag a few people into, feeling how they're feeling at the moment. And I'm going to stick by my prediction, which I did a few weeks ago, and say that the relegation playoff will be at Wolfsburg, and Manu and I will be able to enjoy currywurst and being hosted by Wolfsburg once again in a relegation playoff, because obviously we're going to be in Berlin, so it's only a 45-50-minute train ride.
Chris, they got currywurst in Hamburg too.
Yeah, but they're going to have to go something to beat Wolfsburg, because they've got like VW currywursts.
Unbelievable. Yeah, for anyone that's listening, we do get regular photos sent to us from the press areas about how good the food is from Chris. So this obviously means an awful lot to him. You probably don't understand. But
that's a lot of money to go abroad, Bryce. If you're going to get fed for free and it's top-notch food, you're going to be happy.
Well, they're keeping you happy, and I'm sure you'd rather Wolfsburg stay in the league, would you not, for all this good food?
I'd like to make my way more around, Germany, a few more places. I've been to Wolfsburg a few times now, so if it's the last time I have currywurst there, c'est la vie.
Okay. Well, guys, let's talk a little bit about Bundesliga 2 then. Obviously, we talk about the playoff, third from bottom in the Bundesliga is going to play third from top in Bundesliga 2. The big game is tomorrow night. We're recording this on Sunday night after all the Bundesliga games have been completed, but in Bundesliga 2, they still have Holstein Kiel sitting in third, will be at home to Nuremberg sitting in second. There's 2 points between them. So that means if Holstein Kiel were to win, yes, they would leapfrog them into the automatic playoff position by 1 point with only 2 games remaining. Manu, this is huge tomorrow night, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. And I'm Bavarian. I'm for the club. I think the Nuremberg will do it. They will win this game, and I think it's pretty decisive, right? If they win this game, they're almost through. So, go Nuremberg. Will make it easier for me to do more Bundesliga games when I'm back in Munich.
Well, that's it. It makes it easier for you, does it? But
and also they have the world's oldest bratwurst stand in Nuremberg. Fantastic place. So I wouldn't mind going there more often.
In.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, Chris's ears have pricked up as well. He's interested in it all, isn't he? Okay, guys. Well, it's come down the relegation battle down there. The relegation playoff is coming down to food, by the sounds of it. Yeah. But guys, if you hear this podcast before that game is played, try and find somewhere to tune in for it. It's going to be a real spectacle. The 2 teams that really should go for it. There's plenty to play for in that game, isn't there? It's the playoff can obviously be a rather tricky one, going straight up. It would be a dream to either side. So yeah, try and tune into that. But guys, that more or less does it, I think, this week. We've covered everything, including intercontinental football with the Champions League, promotion, relegation, and plenty of food. So Chris, on that note, what have you got going on this week? What would you like to draw people's attention to?
Obviously, it's Champions League, so I'll be up at Anfield, so keep an eye out on the Football Grad Live Twitter account for that. Also on my Twitter account, I'll be taking pictures of various things, coach greetings, smoke, pyrotechnics, my seat, all interesting sort of stuff. That'll be on Chris78 Williams. And while I'm here, Bryce, I'd like to say well done to Paderborn for coming back up to the Bundesliga 2. And it'd be nice to go back to there at some point next season.
Yeah, without 1860, they wouldn't even be there.
Yeah, well, that's very true.
He just had to get that in there, didn't he? Yeah. Manu, what have you got going on this week? Are you going to be at any games that you'd like to mention?
Sadly, no accreditation with Bayern. They were absolutely, the doors were apparently running by all the Spanish media, so we didn't get accredited for that. That's okay. We'll still cover that game. Plenty of stuff going on for the Champions League game. And then, while we're speaking about 1860, they might seal up the promotion relegation spot on Tuesday in their match. So, maybe we'll do a little bit something on that.
We can look forward to that. Fantastic. How many points did they win the league by?
I'm actually I don't have the points in my top of my head, but I think they're over 75 points now. There's only 3 matches left to play. So I think if they beat Leverkusen, and Bayern 2, the second side, do not win their match, they're through. If they're not through in that match, they're actually facing Bayern next weekend here in Munich. There's the little derby. We'll probably do a preview on that game actually, and I'm working on accreditation for that game. Be an interesting one to do. They could wrap it up there.
Fantastic. Yeah, we look forward to you reporting back on that. But guys, if you've enjoyed the podcast, please head over to the likes of iTunes, give us some positive feedback. We'd really like or really appreciate that. And yeah, get onto Twitter, get in touch with the three of us or the Football Grad account. We'd really like to hear from you on the different topics, or if you have any questions, we'd more than welcome them. I've been your host, Bryce Dunn. You can find me on Twitter at Bryce Dunn11. And that more or less does it for this week. But if you want any articles, reports, or anything else, just head over to the @FootballGrad Live account on Twitter. And yeah, enjoy the games this week. And come on, Bayern Liverpool final, eh? Auf Wiedersehen.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen, ich hab zu holen.
It wouldn't be the holiday season if there wasn't candy, right? Celebrate the holiday season with the Holiday Crush. They've sprinkled candy with a holiday theme and fun-packed challenges every week for 5 whole weeks, finishing on January 4th. The more challenges you complete, the better your chances of unwrapping delicious rewards. So, are you ready to crush the holidays? Play the Holiday Crush now. Download it from the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.